And good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. It is a brisk, slightly windy Monday morning here in the Southeast in Atlanta. Hope everybody was safe after that storm ran through about 4:30 in the morning on Sunday. It sounded like a freight train. We lost a bunch of trees over the weekend. There were, roads blocked, all kinds of stuff. I got to go get a chainsaw. So I hope everybody stayed safe in that. It was a pretty crazy storm that came through here in Georgia. When it goes from 25 to 65, you're going to have problems, and then back down to 25 again. So that's what's going on here. We're 1 week away from the NFL Combine when some of these guys that we've been talking about and we'll learn more about start to separate themselves. Some of the things I want to get into on the show today, Jameis Winston talking up Michael Penix. Is it genuine, or does he have ulterior motives, or both? Are both possible? CBS did a redraft of the 2024 class that left me shaking my head. We will get into that one as well. And then we'll finish with a mock draft on Mock Draft Monday. So those are the three big topics. And then obviously we'll get into anything that y'all want to get into in the chat. But first off, I'm Scott Kennedy. This is Nick Kendall on this side. I'm in Atlanta. He's in Seattle. So we're coast to coast with your podcast this morning. And Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a pretty low-key weekend, which has been good. Get a lot of house cleaning stuff done. It's been 30 degrees to 40 degrees and raining pretty constantly. So not a good weekend to get outside, but that's okay. But I am starting to get the itch. At some point here in the next year, I'm probably moving from Seattle. It's kind of hard to say. My wife works in healthcare from the NCI. So things are not super known right now with all of that, but getting that itch, man. I need to get out there again. I'm missing the mountains. It's been too long, but do get that nature itch scratched today. I'm heading down to the aquarium. I was telling you that earlier with my 13-month-old son and my wife. We've never been out here, and it's a world-class aquarium. So I'm really excited for that. I'm hoping to see some giant Pacific octopus. There's super cool ones there.
Until they're about 3, if you need a quick aquarium trip, run through PetSmart, let them look at the fish. They're mesmerized. They're mesmerized. So that's let's zoom through and we'll look at the fish at PetSmart until they're about 3 and figure that type of stuff out. But we go live every Monday and Wednesday because we like having a conversation with y'all. I want to say hello to some folks who were in here before we even got started, like Michael Ronquillo, one of the benefactors of the show. Michael, good to see you. He says, good morning, Nick, on the Falcons podcast. And then Edward Brown coming in. He says, no to Jameis. And the title of the show is Jameis Winston vying for an Atlanta Falcons backup role. And the reason why I did that is he was really, really talking up Michael Penix Jr. on Super Bowl Radio Row the last weekend, saying this is going to be a future Super Bowl MVP. I am a distrustful sort, Nick. I always look and see what do people have it in for them. Unfortunately, every once in a while I'll run into someone who is actually genuinely nice, and it surprises me. Could Jameis be? Does he believe it? Is he vying for another job because he is a free agent right now and he's had some success in the NFC South? Both. He could mean it and be vying for a backup job. He was asked about it and said, I'm not really looking to be a backup, but I'd back this guy up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's genuine. I think that's just kind of how Jameis is wired. A lot of his just interviews, you see it on the field or whatever. I know he's had, we can't talk about Jameis without me mentioning the sexual assault in the background, the stuff in college where he stole the crab legs or, jumped up on a table and yelled some vulgar things. That's all part of the story with Jameis there in the past that, can't act like they didn't exist. But I think he is genuinely, that exuberant and full of life and positive, at least, in that sphere. So I think it is genuine. He might say the same thing about almost every single quarterback that they would have trot up there. I saw this guy. Oh, he's going to be a Super Bowl MVP. He's the best, God's gift to earth. And I appreciate the energy. I'm not that way all the time. So it's good. And as far as a backup role goes, the issue with that is Jameis is that he's got a chance to go somewhere that doesn't have a quarterback. There's not enough draftable first-round quarterbacks in this class comparatively to spots that are open. And he could easily go to the Raiders or Heck, back to the Browns, the Giants, just a team that misses out or doesn't want to take one of these first-round quarterbacks and not only compete for a starting job, but like probably be the probable starter. So does he want to go to the Falcons where he's absolutely no doubt relegated to backup? I don't know. We'll see. And the other aspect of this is because of that demand, I'm guessing he's going to get a decent, in the least, backup contract. And I don't know if the Falcons are going to be able to be shopping in the more expensive backup bin, given what they're paying Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, he's on $4 million a year the last couple of years.
I think it's going to go up. He played
I think he may double that.
Yes, exactly.
He'll have a chance to get in the Sam Darnold type of last year 7 to 10, somewhere in that range. I think that makes sense. I mean, freaking Taylor Heineke was making $7 million or so before that. The second part of Edward Brown's question, he says, if Kelsey retires, do you think the Chiefs would inquire about Kyle Pitts? And if so, what do you think the compensation should be? I think if I'm a general manager over there, I'm calling and kicking the tires. What are you thinking about Kyle Pitts? Period. If I could get him for low compensation, half price on the salary, he's absolutely worth a try. Where it's not as beneficial to the Atlanta Falcons is he's $11 million. You sunk a number 4 into him after a historic draft, the guys that you passed on to take him. And then you're paying him $11 million this year. You've already paid him $33 million. So after 5 years, you'll pay him $44 million in a number 4 draft pick that could have been, Pat Surtain, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, I think, Devontae Smith, Penei Sewell. Those are some of the guys off the top of my head that you passed on to take him. So it's the opportunity cost and the financial cost of the investment that makes him such a bad deal for the Falcons. But for another team, what should it be, Nick? I thought of that. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but if I were to move him, I would absolutely want it to be a what's the word for flexible? When it could move up from a 5th to a 4th based on conditional. Conditional is the word I'm looking for. I'd trade him for a conditional. You might get a 5th and $5 million, but I would want to make it conditional that it could go all the way up to a 2nd. If you trade him and he goes up to 1,000 yards and plays 50% of the snaps, I'd want it to be a conditional pick that would have escalators based on how he did. That would help you hedge against the fact that he actually reaches his potential. The problem is everybody keeps seeing this potential. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, y'all. How long can you wait? 1 more year. I think the Falcons wait 1 more year. They've invested this much in him. What's $11 million more in 1 more year to see if he reaches potential before he walks as a free agent?
The contract makes it difficult. That's the big kicker. You're obviously going to be able to buy a higher draft pick if you want. So what's more valuable to you, going from like the 4th round to the 3rd round and $8 million in cap space? And again, I'm not sure how the 5th year option can change hands money wise.
It's all negotiable. It's all negotiable. You can split it. He gets it no matter what.
Yeah,
he gets 10.8. I'm just gonna call it 11, y'all. $11 million no matter what. Then you can split it among other teams as part of a trade. Because again, these guys play for the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's an NFL contract. It's not an Atlanta Falcons contract.
Yeah. So that's the kicker there, the amount of money, and if you would be willing to eat some of that. What's more important to you, moving up from 4th to 3rd round, 5th to 4th round, whatever, and getting $7 million, $8 million free off the books, or would you rather eat that and get the higher pick? As far as a conditional pick goes, Scott, you do have the ability. I always love conditional picks. The question is, are you willing to wait? Because let's say it's Kyle Pitts and a 6th this year, but you have a 5th through a 2nd next year. 5th right. If nothing happens.
It would be a 2026 pick. You wouldn't get anything back this year except money.
And I think you could probably get a day 3 pick as well. If I was the Broncos looking for it, I'd give you a 6th round pick this season and a conditional pick that could go all the way up to a 2nd. Like, let's say the highest you can get is if he gets 800 yards and you re-sign him, right? Like something like that. It's like, then I'd probably be okay sending you that future pick. But that's something I wish they did more. We talked about this we had so many shows, Scott, that I have no idea when I talked about it, but I always love the conditional option in those picks as well, because there's the escalators on it and it makes everybody a little bit more happy and amenable. I wish teams did that more often.
Yeah, I think that's what I think. I mean, just think how long it took Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot to pull the plug on Kirk Cousins when he was obviously hurt. I think they're too stubborn to move him. But Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson aren't too stubborn to bench him because Charlie Warner played more snaps than him after week 7. In the 9 games that Charlie Warner played, he missed the Broncos game. So there were 10 games after that. In the 9 games that he played, he had more snaps, offensive snaps, than Kyle Pitts in 7 of those 9 games. Kyle Pitts has already been marginalized. He's marginalized himself. And there's always the excuses. If he just had the right quarterback, it's like we've heard this for 4 years now. He was coming off an injury. Okay, now he's healthy. Okay, well, now he's got Kirk Cousins. Well, now he's got Michael Penix. Well, you are running out of time. You can have all the excuses in the world. There's a long post on my YouTube channel about, think of his last 3 years. 3 years is an eternity in the NFL. The only reason he's getting those 3 years is because he was a number 4 overall pick and has a guaranteed contract, or else he would have been gone already. So the time is about up on Kyle Pitts. I think the Falcons will see it out this year. And the good thing about being a tight end is the franchise tag isn't much. If he goes off for the Falcons this year, tag him. Play him on another 1-year deal. It'll be about $15 million. Tag him. Make him do it again. So I think Kyle Pitts is an Atlanta Falcon in 2025. And you've got the tag in your pocket to risk against him having a huge season. So that's my prediction, Nick.
The question is if his agent will demand that he's a wide receiver instead, depending on his snap allocation. If he's lining up purely, slot and X and only 15% in line, I mean, sorry, you're more of a wide receiver.
His 5th-year option went as a tight end, so I don't know how much choice he has.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Now, when he's on the open market, he'll want to get paid more as a wide receiver. If he has a big season in 2025, gets tagged in 2026. And again, those 2 seasons, he'd still only be 26 years old. He's entering his prime.
Yeah.
After if he played this year, 5 years for the Falcons, then tagged 6 years for the Falcons, it's more like a baseball guy where those guys have 6 years of control before they're allowed to hit free agency. So I want to say hello to some more folks. Quintaro Carter, he says, no way on Jameis. He's blatant disrespect for the Falcons. Not a quality QB for games that matter. Never. And Steven has, talked a little bit about, backup quarterback several times. Stephen B, would be interested to see the Falcons with a dynamic backup who can move well with his feet, could potentially make the Falcons offense more complicated to defend. I think in general, we overestimate the role of the backup quarterback, with very few exceptions. If you are onto your backup quarterback, unless there's a succession plan in place and you've got a bridge quarterback because your real starter is the backup. If you're playing the backup quarterback, you're for any amount of time, you're hosed anyway.
I know there's Tom Mora, longtime offensive coordinator. I mean, he's still doing stuff in the league, but longtime offensive coordinator for the Colts with Peyton Manning. And they talked about Peyton getting, 95% of the reps. And somebody asked, like, what if Peyton goes down? Don't you need the backups to get work too? He's like, if that guy goes down, we're bleeped. We do not practice bleeped. So it's a classic. Tom Moore is a gruff, funny guy. But no, that's you're exactly right. Now, we have seen backup quarterback market kind of escalate over the last couple off seasons as well. So there is like some value to that as well. Because at some point, I think it was not last year, but the year before, we saw a record number of quarterbacks get 100 dropbacks. The season is getting longer as well. So for a team like the Falcons, it's not like the season ending thing, you're done, but like 1 or 2 games with a shoulder injury, I mean, that could make or break your season. So, I mean, it is back and forth, but you don't want to sink such an investment in it that it's keeping you in other ways. And guess what? Again, your piece of the pie that is your budget for the quarterback already being doled out pretty expensively this offseason.
No, there's one question again, and I go back to Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. The big difference, why I'm not 1,000% sure Kirk Cousins is gone like I was with Russell Wilson, is because Russell Wilson's guaranteed salary the next year. So, because Kirk Cousins gets a $10 million 2026 roster bonus if he's on the roster this year on March 17th. So something will happen by March 17th in theory, or else he gets $10 million onto the 2026 salary cap. Russell Wilson's was like $37.5 million. So if he was on the roster in 2024, in March of 2024, his 2025 salary went up $37.5 million. That's a significant difference between the 10 million and the 37.5. I just think in everyone, I put a lot of thought in this because a lot of people have the question. This doesn't make sense. I don't understand. Why would they do this financially? It doesn't make sense. The problem is we're thinking about this like accountants. We're looking at it like this is Madden. He's okay. We got to pay him anyway. Why would we get rid of him? Think of this more like a divorce. This is a damaged relationship. And yes, divorce is expensive, but it is better for the kids to be away from the toxic relationship. This relationship is toxic now. You've seen Kirk Cousins already popping off on Radio Row. You've got real reports of the Falcons aren't even talking to him right now. This relationship is basically over. You do not want him in your quarterback room for the next 12 months.
No.
That is worth I don't know. You have to eat it anyway. That is worth the extra $6 million you're going to have to spend on a backup quarterback to have somebody in the room that is pulling in the right direction. This game is too hard to have somebody that doesn't want to be there that you don't want there. So think of it like a divorce. This is an emotional decision because financially, economically, logically, throw all that out the window because it didn't make sense to begin with. This was a bad relationship from the get-go. This was a bad relationship. From the moment Michael Penix was taken as a quarterback, it turned sour. And then it got worse. This is a divorce. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be emotional. It's going to happen.
Yeah, luckily maybe not too emotional. It was like a Vegas, wedding, whatever. So didn't really have that much of attachment or a history between the two. But yeah, it's one thing too. I'm not sure if any bonus kicks in or anything like that. It's on the timeline for a Cousins contract.
It's March 17th, $10 million for 2026. So it's basically $65 million dead right now, spread across 2 years. If he's on the roster on March 17th, it becomes $75 million dead. That extra 10 hits in 2026. So it would be basically, instead of a $25 million dead cap hit, which they were planning for 2 years of Cousins, $25 million dead cap hit, turn it over to Michael Penix, it would go to $35 million.
Mm-hmm. So it makes sense just to try to get out of it as soon as possible, to eat your veggies and get as clean as soon as possible, because you are on the rookie cost control window and you want as little of that over the duration of Penix's 4 years before the fifth year option hits as possible. So it makes sense to get it done, rip that Band-Aid off and move forward. We got Alan coming in with his Georgia Bulldogs logo here. He says, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful morning here in South Georgia. Ready for a great show." Good to see you, Alan.
It's nice here. It's just cold. Got a 4:00 baseball game, and I'm hoping the wind dies down because 45 and windy is a little tough for baseball.
Yeah, cold. That's doesn't feel good catching the ball for sure and swinging that metal bat. We got Dale also coming in, says, "Good morning, Scott, Nick, and Falcons family. Finally get to catch a live stream. Well, great to see a beautiful pup there." We got Dave coming in here, says, "Here for my Scott and Nick fix." Yeah, we're still here. We're still hanging out. We'll do some draft stuff. Terry Clark also said, "Good morning, Atlanta, Coach Scott and Nick." Harry coming in here. Roy Osborne as well. Good to see you.
I've got my Vying coffee too. So I've got about I don't know, about 20 ounces or so. I'm about 12 into them already. You'll know when it all hits. So Keith, good morning, everybody. Terry says, I think Jameis would be a good backup. He's a good locker room guy. Again, that's what you're looking for. But just going back to Stephen B's point, having a mobile quarterback out there that could give different looks. You said against defenses. I agree with you on and it's several levels of that, Stephen. Having somebody that can run like that. Remember, they brought in a guy to mirror just for the week, just to mirror Lamar Jackson. Yeah. It's the Ravens, right? It's running together on me. But they brought in a player to mimic a mobile quarterback. What if you've got that guy there? So not only, I don't expect it to be more for if this guy's playing, you're screwed. Let me be clear on that. But it can help your defenses prepare week in and week out. It can run scout teams. The backup quarterback running the scout team, that's basically his job. So if you can get him out there and give you better looks and how to prepare against those mobile quarterbacks, I think it is a good idea, Steven.
Talking to Steve, got Steve Kennedy saying, "Morning, gentlemen. Good to see you, Steve. Good picture there. Fishing. I need to get back out there fishing. I didn't use my fishing rod last year. It's way too.
That's an
safe.
Old picture. That little dude in his lap that caught that fish is taller than him now. So
that's great. Bluegill looks like also, but yeah, very cute picture. That's definitely a good memory there. We got Clyde coming in here too with the Chiefs. Oh, it's the crying Jordan Chiefs logo. I was like, man, we got a Chiefs fan in here. No, it's taking a shot at the Chiefs. Okay, we're good for that. -4 here in Iowa. Yeah, it's been cold. I hope you didn't get the freezing rain that they got a couple weeks ago. My parents both took a tumble, which not great. Nate comes in and says to mimic Jaden Daniels. Ah, man, it's so hard to do those unicorn quarterbacks.
That's who it was. I don't remember him playing the Ravens. It was the Commanders. It was one of the last weeks of the season. Sense. Thank you, Nate. They brought in the guy to try and mimic Jaden Daniels, and his scrambling ability didn't help much.
No.
But that's what it was. But that's where I think you're looking for. Again, someone asked, well, how much are you spending on a backup quarterback? I looked around the NFC South, and the Saints their backup was Spencer Rattler. They were paying him like $600,000. The Buccaneers was around $3, and then Michael Penix, I think, may have been the most expensive of the backups on his rookie deal as a first rounder, was about $4 million. So again, this team has bigger problems than the backup quarterback, aside from the fact that Kirk Cousins' contract is the backup quarterback. That's one of the bigger problems, but there are ways to address this team. And again, one of the things I always write when I start seeing these doom and gloom things, when I write it down, is it's important to remember that most people believe this team vastly underachieved, that they underachieved in a big way. And a lot of that had to do with the defense last year. There were some offensive problems in there too, but the defense underachieved. Jeff Ulbrich could be the difference between 8-9 and 10-7. Could be the difference between maybe 11-6. Just a couple of those games where if you just played competent defense, you win them. When you're putting up 30 points and losing, when you're giving up 70% percentage and got teams scoring on 60% of their drives, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, starter or backup.
Yeah, defense was terrible. Ulbrich's going to help a lot. I mean, you hope that draft class that you took last season where you laid those bricks, right? That's the big difference. We're going to talk a lot about the draft. We're going to run a mock here at some point. We're not going to go probably Falcons aren't going to be huge players in free agency. They'll bring in some guys. But really, the big difference is going to be developing and maximizing the guys that are already here, coaching and the player development. So we'll see. I see we got Denver Luke coming in here with a $2.99 super sticker. We got Chris Walker says, morning, everyone. As fun and as exciting as Kirktober was, it wasn't worth the contract. No, it was not. Obviously, that was a terrible contract. Luckily, not as bad as the Russell Wilson trade or the Deshaun Watson trade, but that was one of the bigger flubs in the offseason over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it was and again, it was strange from the beginning. I'm not gonna rehash on that. Luke, good to see you. Thank you for the support, my friend. And thank you for the awesome video. I showed my wife to it. She got a smile out of it too. As a tribute, I stepped away from Broncos for breakfast starting today, basically, to bring y'all more Falcons content. I've got 4 sites on SI. I've got Falcons, Braves, Auburn Tigers, and Florida Gators, and those need my attention a little bit more right now. That I needed to step away and cut back on some of the other things I was doing. And unfortunately, Broncos for breakfast was the first casualty. Might not be the last, but was the first casualty. So thank you, Nick, and thank you all the support to my Broncos friends that are in here right now. There's several of you that are still here. Talked about the redraft that I wanted to get into from CBS, and it was. I'm gonna write this up after the fact. So this is a little preview for you because I'm gonna put bizarre in the title. This was a redraft looking back on, and it was, what was the guy's name that did it? His name is Chris Trapasso. So I've aggregated some of his stuff before, but he, in a redraft, after watching the season with the benefit of hindsight, He went with Chop Robinson at number 8 for the Atlanta Falcons, and Michael Penix drops all the way to 20. So a couple quarterbacks, they switched up their positions a little bit. So, there's still 4 gone, I think, when the Falcons were on the board. Jaden Daniels goes 1, Caleb Williams 3, Drake May 4, Bo Nix 6, Nix for 6. And then at 8, they take Chop Robinson. And then J.J. McCarthy falls to the Broncos at 12, with then Michael Penix goes all the way to 20. Now, part of that can be, okay, I didn't think much of Michael Penix and we didn't see enough for me to move him up. That's fine. Okay, whatever. But how do you watch this team? Because it's with the benefit of hindsight from this year. How do you watch this team in 2024 and not go quarterback again? Kirk Cousins was a bust. He's gone. And even if it was a year later, it was a 2-year deal. He's 37 years old. I still need a quarterback now with 1 year. A 1-year bridge guy makes a lot more sense than a 2-year bridge with a 24-year-old quarterback. Chop Robinson would be great, but my first choice this time last year when we were talking about this, my first choice all last year was rookie quarterback. That hasn't changed over the course of the past 12 months. In fact, it's only gotten stronger that you needed to take a quarterback in last year's draft class, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, is that with the hindsight of knowing where the class is this season too? Because that would make teams
everything. Because he's talking about I watched Caleb Williams, and I think the flashes were good, and I think it's just a better. I still like him a little bit better than Drake May. So he's talking past tense in all of this. And he says, this is what I would do, not necessarily what the general manager would do. Obviously, the general manager, the Falcons are all in. And Falcons fans are all in on Michael Penix. I mean, shoot, when we talked about after Kirktober, maybe, that if Max Crosby wanted out of Vegas, 27-year-old all-pro edge rusher would be available, and they wanted Penix, this might be the conversation. Falcons fans lost their minds. You'd rather have Chop Robinson? I mean, if you try to get Max Crosby for Chop Robinson, they'd ask you for at least another first-round pick, and I'm going to trade Michael Penix Jr. for Chop Robinson? Come on, man. They need a quarterback.
Yeah, to be fair, just to Chop Robinson, he had a heck of a season last year. He was probably the second best first-year edge rusher out of that class, better than Leatu Latu, better than Dallas Turner. He's really juiced up speed rusher, and again had a fabulous season. Jared Verse should be the first one, of course. He had a rookie of the year, right? He was unbelievable.
I think he went fourth. He was the first non-positional player went to the Cardinals.
That makes sense. But again, you're talking about it with the knowledge of this quarterback class. Even I think that you'd have seen all these quarterbacks jump up. Some you mentioned Nick's going earlier, Penix or McCarthy up there as well. So again, there's no trades involved. Somebody probably did trade up to 4 to get Nix in this scenario. Somebody maybe even trades up to 5 to get Michael Penix. But that's just how valuable those quarterbacks are. And of course, if they were gone, that's a different conversation, Scott. But with where they're at, I wouldn't have changed anything for this team. You still take Penix where it stands.
Yeah, the move that didn't make sense was signing Kirk Cousins. That was like 5th on the list. As far as like what would you do to address a quarterback situation last year? Once they signed him, if you're going to sign him, then it makes sense. 2 years of Kirk Cousins, then it might make sense to go Chop Robinson. But now with the benefit of hindsight, we know that we don't want Kirk Cousins playing quarterback pretty much, period. Yeah, he might have been injured and whatnot, but that happens to 37-year-old guys coming off of injuries. Now we know with the benefit of hindsight, if we're going to regrade the prospects, well, let's regrade the players. You would never ever sign Kirk Cousins. So I absolutely have to have a quarterback. So that one, the redraft on from Trapasso, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me on that. Now, if we're talking about prospects and drafting, is there any way Ladd McConkey goes over Marvin Harrison Jr. right now if they were doing a redraft?
The thing about Ladd is still true. He has had a crazy number of injuries in his time at college level. I think he's a little older too. I mean, I think there's a conversation that Harrison's the third or fourth or fifth pass catcher off the board, because I think you can toss in Bowers as a Bowers
He
would probably be
was. So here, when you're talking about wide receivers, but that was the one that kind of, where recency bias, when we talk about in situation, stats are based on a lot of your situation also. But the first pass catcher, Malik Neighbors, goes 9 to the Bears. Brock Bowers goes 10 to the Jets. Brian Thomas goes 13 to the Raiders. Ladd McConkey goes 14 to the Saints. And then Marvin Harrison, that's the fifth one, goes 17 to the Jaguars.
I think that's not totally egregious, just how good Ladd was. Again, the injury stuff, I still probably would be a little bit with Ladd long term compared to Marvin Harrison Jr., but I'm glad that they tossed out. I think there's an argument for Brian Thomas over Malik Neighbors with how physically dominating he was. And then, of course, Brock Bowers doing what he was doing. I think you have a very clear top three. And after that, maybe, how I like to do it, Scott, put things into tiers. Then it's kind of like, what flavor do you like? But yeah, I don't have really a problem with that ranking at all in hindsight.
Okay. I was just wondering, is this recency bias off of a good season? If we were to redo this, Puka Nacua would obviously go considerably higher.
Yeah.
But as part of that, the system and, where you're playing as well, are you necessarily a better prospect?
It's the same thing, though.
Is Ladd McConkey a better prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Probably not, just because, again, the injury stuff, the size stuff that he does, but McConkey's really freaking good. And again, we're talking that doesn't mean that they're going to be better players long term. Your rookie season does not define the rest of your career. So you mentioned it is recency bias, but also
ask Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. But also to a certain extent, we're evaluating these guys on recency bias because most of the time we're watching their last year of tape, right, in college. So it's the latest information that we have at the actual NFL level. So it is going to be the most predictive, but it doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the path upward growth. Blah, 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 blah.
Now, we're not talking all-star teams. We're not talking Pro Bowls. We're not talking any of that, because that obviously is based on your production and stats. We're talking about draft, which is based on, let's put everybody in a vacuum. And if I took this guy and switch places, or if in 5 years, where are we going to be? Those are the kind of things you try and do with the draft. Steven, I love this question. This was one of his earlier questions. He says, how often does keeping a veteran center really move the needle for a team? The Eagles just replaced their longtime center. Not convinced paying Dahlman top 5 center money is good. Great question. And I want to, again, one here. I've got several points on this, and then I'll hand it over to Nick. One, center money isn't all that much. It's considerably lower than tackles and even guards at this time, Nick. It's considerably lower. It'll be half, really. It'll be half price compared to an offensive tackle. So it's not that much money. Two, do you want a new center with your shiny new quarterback? Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, their jobs with the Atlanta Falcons depend on Michael Penix being successful. When you do something completely unorthodox like they did last year and that they've done with this team several times, actually, it better work. Do you want a new center coming in? Do you want a possible downgrade at center? And then three, the highest graded PFF centers: Creed Humphrey, Kansas City Chiefs; Frank Ragnow, Detroit Lions; Tyler Linderbaum, Baltimore Ravens; Drew Dahlman, Atlanta Falcons; Zach Frazier, Pittsburgh Steelers. 4 of those guys made the playoffs. And then going all the way down, they replaced their center. But Cam Jurgens, he's not second. He was a second-round selection in 2022. So that's a premium pick on a center. They had a guy in waiting there. Mm-hmm. He was, Dahlman was a 4th-round pick. A second-round pick on a center is a premium pick. And he was still 14th. So he was still better than average, according to PFF. So I think you pay Drew Dahlman because, again, we're not talking left tackle. We're talking young center. Don't mess with the offensive line right now. That's my idea. My thoughts.
We've talked about it on here a lot, Scott. I've been banging the drum. How much you and I are both defensive line savages, frothing at the mouth to spend as many premium resources as possible on your pass rush. But the one caveat I have is that I only feel that way if you're comfortable with your offensive line, because Penix's history, his style of play, the run game that you've already invested in a bleep ton, all of that depends on the offensive line. So I would not let Dahlman go personally. I'm not sure exactly what the contract looks like. I feel very uncomfortable with a new center coming in, changing the interior trio that you have now. 2 years of synergy with for that outside zone scheme that you want to run. Dahlman's a good outside zone fit. Again, he's going to be the highest paid center or top 5. As you mentioned, centers really don't get paid a lot on the open market, so it's not going to be massive by any means. Is he a superstar center? No, but I think he is, in that top 5 to 10 range. And I just think it's so important to keep the offensive line together strong as much as possible for the development of Penix and for the health of Penix. Again, like circling back again, relating it back to the Broncos, Denver was in cap hell, obviously, at following Russell Wilson. First thing Sean Payton did when he came into this team is he spent, despite the cap hell, the impending cap hell and paying Russell Wilson, the lack of draft picks for trading for him, they spent big money on 2 pieces on the offensive line to stabilize it, to set that table up so that way there's a high baseline, a high floor for whatever quarterback comes in. I just think it's a non-negotiable when you have somebody like a Michael Penix in there. The offensive line has to be priority 1, and then after that, it's defensive line.
Cushenberry last year was the top-rated center in free agency and got a 4-year, $50 million deal. That was an overspend by the Titans in a big way. Let me see where Cushenberry finished this year. I think he reverted back to form. Lloyd Cushenberry was the 36th ranked center, which is basically where he had been in 3 out of his previous 4 years with the Denver Broncos. That was a really poor decision by the Titans, and that's how you end up, drafting top 5 is when you make decisions like that. Because Cushenberry wasn't very good. He was okay. At his best, he was okay. At Dahlman's best, he's pretty damn good. He is a top 5 center. And the centers right now, if you go by contract average, Creed Humphrey's at 18. He's not getting 18. Frank Ragnow was at 13. Lloyd Cushenberry at 12.5. Eric McCoy at 12. And then number 6 was 9.7. So I think in that 12.5 to the 13, 14 range. And on a multi-year deal, you give him a signing bonus. Arthur Blank will splash the cash. He'll give him a signing bonus. You can actually lower the salary cap hit for next year when you need it. Pretty low-ish, by comparison. So the Falcons will have plenty of money once Kirk's Cousins contract comes off the books. Too much alliteration there. That you can give him a deal and it won't really affect the salary cap negatively in 2025. I am a big advocate for re-signing Drew Dahlman on this one. Let's run him off. What do you think, y'all?
That sounds great, but let's say also that he's only like the 10th best center. I still think it's more valuable to keep him for the synergy of the line, especially for an outside zone where coordination is so important between the 5 guys across the line, and making sure that Michael Penix isn't getting guys pushed into him. It's somebody new snapping him the football, the line check, somebody who's been here for a bit. I just think he's more valuable to you than almost any team he'd be on the open market. So I can't imagine letting him go. And top 5 center, 10th best center. After the top 2, 3, it really does kind of fall off a tad. You can't talk about Dahlman without saying he does have the benefit of playing next to,
Chris
right
Lindstrom.
guard. Chris Lindstrom. Yeah, I kept thinking, I always do Matthews. No, it's not Matthews. Lindstrom, of course. But again, I think that number one imperative leaving this offseason is you can't come away with a weaker offensive line than you had this season with Michael Penix. It can make or break your quarterback, especially your young quarterback. Look at what Bo Nix did compared to Caleb Williams or any of these quarterbacks. You cannot go in with a weakness on the offensive line for a young quarterback. It can kill them faster than anything. CJ Stroud this season. Heck. So I think you can't let him walk.
I think you'd have you'd have a hard time, whether you think Dahlman is the answer or not. I think you would have a hard time upgrading this year, 2025. for the cost. You would have a hard time finding a replacement that you think that would play better this year in 2025 than Dahlman played in 2024. I think that would be very, very hard to do. Let's see how we see this. Let me zoom in just a little bit and see how that looks on the screen. Maybe one more. Let's see if we can get rid of this. Why do you want to get rid of this ad? Because it is covering up my... Yeah, that's not going to work. Oh, here it is. It's way over here. Tricky.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're on the NFL mock draft database simulator. I ran this one, and I like their board. I've liked it for years. I've used this board for probably 4 years. Keith Brugman asks, is Dahlman an upgrade for the Broncos? Yeah. Yes. Hell, I thought Matt Hennessy was an upgrade for the Broncos, and he was Dahlman's backup. The Broncos haven't been very good at center since I've been, in the 4 years I've been covering the Broncos. Cushenberry wasn't very good, and Wattenberg wasn't very good. So
still not very
Hennessy
good.
was an upgrade, let alone Dahlman. I can't get rid of that ad either. Too many ads on this. There we go. It went away. Want to get started here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Runs a little slower, so I'll have plenty of time to talk between. I'm not going to do trades. Trades are way too easy.
Don't hit accept.
I mean, for 15 to give me a 2026 1, a 2026 2, and a 4th and a 5th, yes, I would do that. A 1, a 3, and a 5 in 2026 for a 1 from the Ravens. Look at all these trades. They offered me 7 draft picks. Yes, I would do that. It's too easy. On the board here at 15, we got Tyler Warren. If Pitts moves on, a playmaker like Warren wouldn't be the craziest thing Terry Fontenot has done in the first round of the draft.
And the thing is, you mentioned your stat earlier about Charlie Warner playing more snaps. They are looking for a tight end who can function in line in 11 personnel with Drake London in the slot. Tyler Warren can do that. This is not as much a Kyle Pitts replacement option as it is a Charlie Warner replacement option. That said, it feels a little ornamental compared to some of the meat and potato needs.
This is one of those best player available. How wedded are you to the best player available? Because I think Tyler Warren is one of the best players in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Best prospect. Now, is he the best prospect available? Not for this team. I couldn't do it. Even if they move on from Pitts, if they traded from Pitts, I couldn't do this with Tyler Warren. I love Tyler Warren. I mean, I'm looking at George Kelsey all over again. I just the versatility, line him up all over the place. I love Tyler Warren. I'm going Jalen Walker here. I don't even have to scroll down to see who else is available. I'm going Jalen Walker here.
And I think if Tyler Warren did fall to that point, Scott, Broncos are calling and saying, hey, we move up for 20 and our 3rd round pick this season to go up? I don't think they're going to give up the 2nd round pick, but we'll see what happens there. You're here on the board again with the Falcons.
46. Whew, that's safety. Nick Emenwari.
He's unique. He's special.
Yeah, I mean, you need edge. I could go defensive line. I absolutely need linebacker. I absolutely need safety. I absolutely need cornerback. Mm-hmm. So safety here. Interior OL, no thanks. Jack Sawyer's there. That's not a bad pick. Jackson Dart, no. I'm not going quarterback. I'm not going offensive line. Edge is available again. Wide receiver is not completely out of the question in the 2nd round, especially if you're able to trade down just a little bit and get another day 2 pick. Mooney had a career year and Ray McLeod had a career year. What if they fall off a little bit? And besides that, both of those guys are out of contract after next season. And Drake London is getting huge money after next season too. I'm still not doing that. I'm going for starters. I'm Raheem Morris, and I know I need to win now. I'm going for starters, and my starters can be had at safety, at linebacker, at cornerback. I already got my edge starter. So right now I would absolutely go with the safety there as a pick based on needs. And I'm kind of thinking that way too. Unless you see one of those corners, Nick, I'm going to scroll back up. Trey Amos, I don't know a ton about him, but
Trey
I don't
Amos,
see a fire-breathing linebacker. So for me, it would be between the safety and the corner.
Trey Amos is worth a shot there. I think Derek Harmon is also worth a shot. Just adding a bunch on the defensive line. Not a bad pick there. If you're looking for a 3 technique, I think TJ Sanders was down there a bit. I wouldn't be shocked at all. With Ulbrich, the 4 down linemen, Getting a Grady Jarrett replacement, I think TJ Sanders is probably one of the better 3 techniques in this draft class. But I'm fine. I think probably the rarest guy on the board here is Iman Wari. You probably can find safety later still all the same. So it comes down to if you love the uniqueness of Iman Wari, I got no problem with that. If you just want to lay bricks and continue to raise the floor of the defense, then it probably is Derek Harmon. But I got either of those I'd be happy with as a Falcons
I'm raising
fan.
the floor of my defense by getting competency on the backside, which I didn't have at all my positions last year. So I'm going safety on this one. And then we got a little bit of time to talk about it. Again, you could go best prospect available, et cetera. But if you were to go corner, you could go DL, you could double up on edge, honestly. You've really only got one edge coming into this year. D'Angelo Malone started flashing finally a little bit, just in time for him to be out of contract. You've got Braylon Trice, a 3rd-round pick coming off of a season-ending injury, and you've got Arnold Ebiketie in the final year of his contract. You need a couple of edge rushers.
Yeah. So
all right, now we're talking. Okay, how about that? How about that linebacker we were talking about? There's Demetrius Knight. You still need a corner. I'd be real happy with a corner here.
Braden Swinson had a heck of a. You got 2 really good linebackers here in Chris Paul Jr. I love Jordan Phillips for a pure nose tackle. If you're looking to replace, Onyemata, kind of a little bit more size, he makes a lot of sense for you, of course, as well. He's also like only 20 years old. He's super young, so you got a lot of value still there. So the guys who stand out here for me, Scott, are the 2 linebackers. I think both these linebackers are going to end up in the top 100 in Demetrius Knight and Chris Paul Jr. I know you already took a linebacker. I'm not playing.
We haven't taken a linebacker. We need one.
I was going to say Jalen Walker. I think he's going to the combine as a linebacker. I'm not playing him at linebacker.
Yeah, he'll be a Micah Parsons linebacker.
Yep, he's going to play way more edge. So for me, it's either Demetrius Knight is a little bit.
Demetrius Knight. I'm going to make the decision for you.
Yeah, but Chris Paul's worth a shout too. The 2 things about those linebackers that scare me a little bit is that they played behind 2 incredible defensive lines this season. So like their ability to have to scrape off dudes while it's there in theory, they're able to play a little bit more clean and reactive without having to deal with muckiness in front of them. So wanted at least that's something that gives me a little bit of pause with those 2. But they're Chris Paul, Ole Miss, Demetrius Knight Jr., South Carolina, great prospects.
Good morning, Keith. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Thanks for all the support you show our show. Jay Black says, we need a nose tackle too, no lower than the 3rd round. Did you guys move back from 15 in the mock? We don't do trade downs in the mock because it's too easy to trade down. I mean, we got offered 7 picks for number 15. 7. Yeah. Yes, I would do that. It's way too easy to move down. And you don't have a 3rd-round pick, Jay. So you've got 1st and a 2nd and a 4th. So, do you want a reserve defensive lineman? Possible. But you took 3 defensive linemen last year. David Onyemata is going to be gone. Brandon Dorlus and Ruka Rohoro and Grady Jarrett is a pretty good 3-person rotation. Now I can go find my Abdul Anderson or Abdul. What was his name? I always get him confused with the running back. It was Abdul Anderson. For where? For the defensive tackle that played really well for the Falcons and then ended up getting a pretty good contract with the Commanders. He was good. Now I'm going for my 4th guy. I'm going to go find a $2.5 million pro, like Kentavious Street, like LaCale London, unless somebody just jumps off the board at me there. Yes, I want to trade down. I absolutely want to trade down, but we'll see. They haven't done a really good job. One of the best moves Terry Fontenot's ever made was a trade down. When he moved down from in the 2nd round in his first draft, he took Richie Grant when he traded down, but with that 4th round pick, he got Drew Dahlman. And ironically, he ended up better than the 2 2nd-round picks that were involved in that trade, which was Javonte Williams for the Broncos, a running back, and Richie Grant for the Falcons. The best player in that swap was a 4th-rounder and Drew Dahlman, and it was Abdul Anderson. Thank you, D-Mac.
Yep. And I also like the chat here, Scott. Somebody says, we got Unnormalized saying Demetrius Knight is a monster, and then Stephen B saying don't pass on Chris Paul again. So those, I think there's 3 really good day 2 linebackers that I like. Also want to throw in a Carson Schwessinger from UCLA, but any of those 3 day 3 makes sense. And hopefully at some point, Scott, I know that the trades are too easy, but just where the Falcons are at, a trade down makes some sense. So I think at least maybe at some point we can take advantage of that. And
I'm going to see if I can find one of my, it looks like all my sneakers are gone.
No, he
like
ends
my
up going
double O from UCLA, my underrated guys. Looks like they all might be gone. So now we're just looking for guys that can play. We don't have a corner out of here. Is there a corner now? Right now in the 7th, I'm looking for a guy that hasn't played a whole lot at corner that ran a 4.3 that I can turn into a special teams guy. I'm looking for traits. I'm looking for measurement guys or somebody that had 200 tackles that ran a 4.8. I'm looking for, there's a scale, there's a production and an athletic scale. And the guys that go high are the ones that are high on both. And the guys that slip are the guys that are low on one, but high on another. Mm-hmm. I want someone that's pegging either the production scale or the athletic scale when I'm looking in the 7th round. I don't know who those guys are yet.
Yeah.
I have a few guys that jump out 12, throw in a defensive lineman here. I could get my Rutgers corner. I don't know these guys. Baron Sorrell wasn't very good I don't really like him. Or I could throw in, who's a damn good linebacker? Shamar James is a good linebacker.
Mm-hmm. I think the guy who jumps out here for me, just as far as too much value to let go, is Caldwell. I think he's going to be a top 120 pick. I think for how
you took Caldwell. I saw Keandre Lambert-Smith, who finished 4th in the SEC in both receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Penn State transfer, went to Auburn and had a great season despite some pretty bad quarterback play. I just threw him in there as a guy that I really like. But who would you have taken there, Nick?
Without a doubt, Jameer Caldwell. Okay. I think that he's somebody that I've been doing a weekly 3-round mock draft, and I'm considering him for the 3rd round for the Broncos. I think he is really a pretty special athlete for 6'2", 320. I think he had the 2nd fastest time of any of the defensive tackles at the Senior Bowl, despite being 320 pounds, 330 pounds. My only complaint about him really is that he's not got great length. I think only 32-inch arm length, but he transferred from Houston. You see him playing 5 technique at Houston. You see him trying spin moves and stuff. At Oregon this year, he was much more, I have to take on doubles and be a dirty player to free everybody up. And God bless him because somebody has to do the dirty work, right? And the fact that he was willing to do that and do it as well as he did stands out for me. But I think he's a top 120 pick all day. So to get him in the 6th round is ridiculous value. I do think also Tim Smith from Alabama, another dirty work player for this team, stands out for me. Also, I know that Mike Tomlin was all over him at the Senior Bowl. From what I
wasn't all that impressed with Tim Smith.
I mean, you're talking 6th round here.
I knew Jamari Caldwell. If Jamari's there, I remember Jamari. Jamari was good.
I think Smith is going to be a useful, 5th or 6th guy, defensive line rotation, late day 3. But Jamari's, really stands out.
So what we did is we tried to get 3 starters on defense. We got edge. The number 15 if they go defense, number 15 should be a starter. As long as he's healthy and can walk and chew gum at the same time, he's going to be a starter next year. If you go safety, linebacker, corner in the 2nd, that's probably going to be a starter. I can't say this enough. What I really want out of this is more picks. And the Falcons should have another 7th, but what I really want is another day 2 pick, 2nd or 3rd round pick. And if you move down from 15 to 20 and grab a different edge, James Pierce, Mike Green, a couple guys, Jalen Walker could slide. Mikael Williams might slide a little bit. You never know. One of those edges, Shamar Stewart. There's a bunch of different players in there. What I really want is more picks, is to trade down in this. So we might do that next week where we trade down and end up with 12 picks and have some fun. We'll do that after the combine, Nick, when we got a really good idea how good these guys are doing. But we're going to get out of here. Want to say thank you very much to our Super Chat superstars like Keith and Ellen Johnson coming in, Edward Brown and Luke coming in as well with the support. It means a lot. And if you the other support that you can give the show is make sure you hit like and or share on any place that you're watching this. It really helps us with the social media algorithms and helps build the channel so we can find more Falcons fans. The show's been growing a lot since we've been doing it because of people like you. We want to say thank you. We will be back on Wednesday. We'll see what else is going on. And Nick, any final words?
I do see, I don't know, again, this is not to say this guy is not credible or not, but Jay Ben on Twitter, his account says that he was a former Atlanta sports radio host, reporter, writer. But he reported that Chiefs reached out to the Falcons about Pitt's availability. So I'm not sure. Again, is that a credible source? I've just tossing it out there. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I could write something like that for 31 teams and have it be true. My friend sent me one of these. It was like something I had just written, and then he finds somebody else saying it on Twitter and sends it to me. I'm like, yeah, I wrote that already. Like everybody should be doing this. If you're not, it was probably Terry Fontenot reaching out for, one of the edge rushers or something that, is Micah Parsons going to be available? Is Max Crosby going to be available? If you're not making those phone calls, you're not doing your job. It might be a slim and number. So what else am I doing? I'm watching football players and I'm trying to make my team better. A 5-minute phone call is not going to hurt. That's a small time in the day. And Coach coming in, love y'all. Love you too, brother. Thank you so much for the support. We're going to hop on out of here. We will see you Wednesday. Thank you for being here, everybody. It's almost combine time, almost free agent time, almost draft time. My favorite time of the year. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Hopefully you got a couple days off, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Peace.